So every now and then you get a chance to chop it up with John Solloder, one of the finest people I know in the state of fucking Texas. What's up, John?
State of Texas. I thought the whole country, man. It's only Texas. It's only one little place.
Buddy, Texas is like a country.
It is like a country. You saw that when you were down here, right? I mean, we are a big country, but you know, Chris, it's been an interesting 6 months in my career, and you know, I've had a long career. You know, I've been in business for myself for 42 years. I mean, just to put
Jesus
that into,
Christ, are you old?
I am old. I put that in context. I mean, think about it. 1983, I started. President Reagan's president then, and then President Bush the first. And then who came after Bushy? Clinton. And then after Clinton was Bush 2, Obama, Trump, the absent-minded professor. I'm sorry, I mean Joe Biden, and back to Trump. So I mean, we've had 7 or 8 different butts sitting in that seat. Some have been the same butts a couple of times, but at the end of the day, that's how long I've been in business for myself. That's a long time. And what's happened over the last little while is two key words have come into my life. And it's not that they came into my life, they've been there forever, right? But at the end of the day, pivot and agility. Now, the pivot came way back in 2020 during COVID. And what happened during COVID was I had created 2 books that were coming out. This one came out at the end of 2019, and this one came out the beginning of 2020. Now, if you could pick any historical reference you want, the worst time to put books out would probably be then. And only because I relied on live audiences. I'm in network marketing. I have been for 42 years. I've been very, very successful at it. A lot of you know me. You might know me from my current company. You might know me from my past companies. You might know me from my trainings. You might know me from other books that I've been featured in, like The Millionaire Training by Larry Thompson, the former vice president of Herbalife, for example. I'm on the cover of his book. I've written the forwards for 7 or 8 other people's books. I've been referenced a lot in network marketing over the years, and I've been quoted, stolen my information. Other people have put their name on it, et cetera, et cetera. I've been doing this a long time. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man just admitted to being old as fuck.
That is true. I got this gray hair for a reason, and it wasn't just my kids and my wife. Although I'll
I don't
blame
even
them.
call it gray hair anymore. My shit's just fucking white.
At least I still got some. I mean,
I'm like I'm like Gandalf the White.
yeah, but I'm getting mine. I got a big meeting in Houston next week. After that, I'm getting this thing cut, man. It's summertime in Texas. It's hot as you know what. But let me tell you about
Wait,
pivoting
wait,
and
you're
agility,
gonna
folks.
you're gonna do this? Because I'll tell you right now, you can save thousands of dollars with this haircut, buddy.
It's true. But let's talk about pivoting and agility for a minute. Okay, the pivot came. Think of basketball for a second. If you got your back to the hoop, your teammate comes down the court, he throws you the ball, you turn around, you face the hoop, you hopefully throw it in, right? That's what I had to do. I had to pivot from doing 60 meetings in 60 different cities in 2020 to having to go online. So what did I do? I created a podcast. Leave Nothing to Chance. I happen to have the shirt on today. Okay, my one book is called Leaving Nothing to Chance, for example. And there's a story to that, but we won't tell that today of why that became significant. But more importantly, that was the pivot. The agility didn't happen for another 5 years. Back in October 2024, a few short months ago, I get an email one day from some guy who's blowing smoke up my skirt about I am the most wonderful podcast in the
You
world.
know, by the way, you've used that line blowing smoke up your skirt, and I actually thought it was a joke until I met you for the first time down in Dallas and you showed up wearing a skirt.
That was a kilt, actually. That's from my Scottish heritage that I wore a kilt, actually. I went to a wedding the week before that, and the guys really did have kilts on in 100-degree weather. These guys from Scotland, they had no idea how hot it was here. They were wearing kilts. But anyway, I didn't ask them the age-old question. You ask a guy wearing a kilt, what are you wearing under that? Anyway, but in all seriousness, okay, the agility came in. I get this email from some guy named Chris Champion. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but I'm going to respond to it because he's saying really nice stuff about my podcast and how great and wonderful it is. And, you know, I'm the next Larry King and all this other stuff. So I'm like, I got to see who this character is. I contacted him. We did a podcast together, and then we started to become friendly. And long story short, Chris admitted to me during the course of that podcast or thereafter that wonderful email blowing all the smoke up my proverbial skirt was written by AI. And by the way, it was probably the best written email I've gotten in a long, long time. And I got some super educated people in a lot of different fields that write to me. It was a really good email. Like I responded to it right away. And I even showed my wife, I'm like, look at this email. This guy's saying all this nice stuff about me. Anyway, when Chris shared that with me, I said, that's fascinating. And then he shared with me the fact that I could actually use a service that he had helped to put together with some engineers, okay, to basically reach out to literally tens of thousands of other podcasters with similar subjects to mine: health and nutrition, finance, all the stuff I can talk about in my sleep, network marketing, et cetera, entrepreneurialism, all those type of things, okay, that I know something about. And that I could reach out to other guys like me, other gals like me that had similar shows to mine, and that I could probably appear on their shows, and that I could do that and use about 40,000 man hours a night to do that. And I was like, I wanted to put that in context. And I started to think, if I went to our local high school and I hired a bunch of the kids that are graduating, and I hired them now, it would take them in their entire careers to do what AI could do in one night. Reach out to 40.
Well, not even that. It would take you 5,000 employees working 8 hours to do the same amount of work that AI can do in 24-hour period.
And you couldn't pay them. I mean, when you think about that. So at the end of the day, I got fascinated, and I said, all right, Chris, you know what? I'm game. I wrote him a check. Okay. And should I say the amount, Chris?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I want everyone to know.
I wrote a check for almost $9,000 as a deposit. My wife thought I was crazy. She's like, you're supposed to be semi-retired. I'm like, no, 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 no. I got to do this. I got to do
Wait,
this.
did she say semi-retired or retarded?
Both, both, both. She was being nice that day, and with her French Canadian accent, sometimes she's hard to understand. So I'm not sure.
Shout out to
either,
Jose.
either way, something about spending nine
Viva la
grand.
Jose.
She wasn't that happy about $9,000, but when I explained to her what it was, she got it. Our son's an engineer. I mean,
Now
like,
wait a second. Now wait a second. Since you wrote that check, how busy has Jose been?
well, that's the funny part is Jose runs all my administration dealing with all of these people who want to interview me on their show. Now, it's funny. I used those two words earlier, right? Pivoting and agility. The agility part of this was a year ago. If you talked to me and you said, "Hey, let's talk about AI," I would go like this: I don't want to hear about AI. I'm an old guy. I don't need to understand AI. My son needs to understand AI. I don't need to understand it. I'm at the end of my business career. Blah, 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 blah. Well, anyway, long story short, AI opened my eyes, and all of a sudden I started to do podcasts literally all over the world. I've done it with people in Dubai, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, England, Mexico, Bolivia a couple of weeks ago. Bolivia,
Wow.
I did a podcast, Costa Rica, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I even met the guy who is the publisher of this magazine, Pop Doctor Magazine, okay, who's now become
John Highland.
John Highland. And John Highland came as a result of this. And here's what's funny: Chris and I are now the co-hosts of the Top Doctor Magazine podcast on
Top
top of
Doctor podcast, yeah.
so this is
Here's
how.
the funny thing. You've become so proficient at being a podcast, you recently got asked to host interviews for a new show around top doctors. Now,
Exactly.
think about that for a second. In 6 months, you've done so many podcasts that people are coming to you and saying, hey, you're so good at the interviewing part. We want you to host this show.
Well, and it's flattering, okay, and we're going to do a good job. We've started to do those this week. We'll be rolling them out in the next couple of weeks. But this is how doors open, okay. If you're willing to have agility, what's agility? Think of it in sports again: the ability to go sideways, the ability to go forward. Okay, you got to be agile in business, right? You got to be willing to pivot sometimes, right? I can't do meetings in 2020, but I can do a podcast, right? So I can still have an audience and still talk to people for my books. And at the same time, 5 years later, saying I'm open to AI. I'm willing to listen to what Chris presented to me. I'm willing to have an open mind. Do you have an open mind if you're hearing this podcast? If you're in network marketing, there's no better way to reach new prospects. Okay. bottom line is, we're in a business where you run out of your contacts eventually. I've been doing my current company 29 years. Believe me, everybody in my family, my friends, guys I work out with, they all know what I do. They're either on the product, been in the business, on auto ship, or if I talk about it, they want to hit me in the head. They don't want to hear about it at all. Okay. Which means, guess what? You always need new people to talk to. So, guess what these other podcasters are? Prospects for your network marketing business. Now, maybe they want to participate, maybe they don't. I even told a good friend of mine, the great and wonderful Leslie Hawker. And some of you know Leslie Hawker. She's been in network marketing as long as I have. Her and her husband, Ron Forrester, they're icons in the industry. I told my friend Leslie about this. Okay. And Leslie
When
said,
did
you
you
know
tell
what?
her about this, by the way?
You know what, John? If you're doing that, we know you a long time. Okay. We go back a long way together, over 30 years. And I told Leslie about this, and Leslie said, you know what, John? If you're doing that, maybe I should start doing that. Grow my business. And she started to do that a short time ago. Leslie had over 1,200, get this, folks, 1,200 emails from people who want to introduce her on their show about longevity. Okay, she's not going to get on 1,200 shows, but she's gotten on a bunch already. She's got a bunch more. So much so she actually had to stop the emails for a couple of weeks because she's that busy just so she can catch up and do all the other facets of her business and have her life,
She was literally begging to stop. She was crying.
right?
She was in a fetal position. Please make it stop. I'm too busy.
If they know Leslie, you know that's not Leslie. Leslie's very strong. But in all reality, Leslie was saying, hey, guys, you know what? When it rains, it pours. And right now I'm in a deluge, like slow it up because I got to do all the shows I'm already booked on, plus run all the other
Now
facets.
think about that for a second. What's actually happening to Leslie? She's actually becoming so busy that her brand is increasing frequency. People are seeing her on all these different shows. And one of the things that you haven't talked about that happened to her recently is she got invited to speak at some big event because somebody saw her frequency and they saw her brand and they saw her bio and they're like, wait a second, we'd like to forget the podcast only. We want you to come speak.
Yeah, she's getting invited to all kinds of stuff. And look, she's just one contact. So if you're listening to this and you're in the industry, contact me. Let me tell you more. Okay. I can give you my phone number. You can text me. Text me. Don't call me, please. Just text me and say, hey, John, I'm interested in that podcast thing, the AI thing you're talking about. Text me at 972
Whoa, 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 whoa! Stop. You never want to do that on the internet's a weird place these days. We'll let them contact you through other means.
All right. So you can contact me through other means. See, I'm still learning this stuff. That's why I need
Yeah,
Chris.
no, no. Yeah, got to be a little careful. The internet's a weird place. You give out your mobile numbers, weird stuff can happen, John.
We're only playing. I wasn't really going to give him my phone number. You know.
Exactly.
Okay, now, folks, but reach to me and I'll tell you the results. Okay, I'll tell you. Top doctor happened for me. Leslie's got what she's got going. And by the way, I haven't promoted this. Like, I'm not a salesman for this brand or anything. I got plenty going on in my business career already. But at the end of the day, I feel really strongly about it. Let me just give you another comparison. And this isn't to be political. I'm not picking political sides. Okay. But you just go back to this last election. Donald Trump's son, Barron, suggested he get on podcasts. And he did. And not only Joe Rogan, probably the most famous podcast out there, but he got on a lot of other smaller podcasts. People like my show, people like Chris's show, other podcasters, not our individual ones, but maybe next time, who knows? But the point was this: he got on over 100. Kamala Harris got on 4, and without any political endorsement, one way or another. Here's the reality: the 18 to 35-year-old American, and probably Canadian, and probably Brit, and any other English speaking language, is not listening to Fox News, MSNBC, or CNN. They've turned them off, or they never turned them on in the first place. I got 3 kids, by the way, in their 20s and 30s. They don't even own televisions. So they couldn't watch it if they wanted to. So where do they get their news? Well, I'm not saying they get it all from podcasts, but they get a lot of it from podcasts. So as this media grows, and there's about 4 million people right now doing podcasts in English in North America. Okay. As this media grows, you can be part of the messaging not only for your network marketing brand, not only for our network marketing industry, which, by the way, needs some favorable light shed on it. Okay, it's a whole nother story, but we need to get out there and tell people that we're not all a bunch of con artists. There's a lot of legitimate products and legitimate companies, legitimate pay plans out there in network marketing. Okay, there's some bad guys, certainly, but there's some bad car dealers and everything else too. But anyway, point being, at the end of the day, okay, we've got a resource that can help you. So reach to me. Let me tell you about it. We can get on a podcast or we can get on a conference call. I don't care what we get on. I'll send you the information. I'll let you know what we've done, what Leslie's doing. I've got a couple of other people in the industry that
Hey,
are
John,
probably going to do the same thing, by the way.
you've been around a long time. One thing that podcasts do that no other form of advertising does is that when you do an interview today for an hour, like let's say we do this podcast, we upload it to all our channels, and all of a sudden this podcast is up there for people to watch today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 5 years from now, 6 years from now. It is evergreen content. And unlike any other advertising you're ever going to do, people get a chance to learn about you and your brand and your values and your product years from now. You buy an ad on Instagram, the second that ad is seen, it's gone. Nobody's ever going to see it again. Talk
Yeah,
about that for a second.
well, yeah, and you're right. I mean, this lives on. I mean, I did shows 5 years ago. People are still listening to. Chris was telling me about something he did almost 15 years ago that's still out there on YouTube. I have another friend in Manila, Chris Thomas. He did something about 10 years ago that's still out there on YouTube. So, hey, these things become evergreen. Okay, in other words, they're forever green. Okay, they're not dying, and they'll live on, in some cases long past maybe your lifespan here on earth. Who knows, right? But that's a whole nother part of this. Okay, I mean, one of my idols was the great Larry King, and Larry King, I still go sometimes, and I'll watch Larry King do an interview because he was the master. I mean, my greatest day, I couldn't be as good as him on his worst day. He was just the master of doing what we do. Okay. But at the end of the day, what did Larry do? What did others do? What's Joe Rogan do? They communicate a message of a real person interviewing other real people, not celebrities, not big shots, normal people that are out there doing the work. Okay. Getting up early, going to bed late, worrying about paying their bills and finding a way to do it. In our case, through network marketing, in other people's cases, whatever they do for a living. Now, by the way, one question that you might think of is, okay, John, we've noticed from your YouTube channel that you're not all network marketing anymore. Well, here's what happened. I started to recognize that even my network marketing colleagues had other stories to tell that were interesting, that were relevant, that my network marketing friends that were listening to the show and supporting the show, that they wanted to hear from people besides just another guy saying, how do you sponsor your cousin long distance in Los Angeles and get him going? Like, that was interesting a few years ago, and it's still interesting, but it's not as interesting as hearing somebody's life story, the hole that they maybe came out of, the environment they came out of, the things that they've overcome, the speed bumps that they had to go over to succeed in whatever endeavor in life that they happen to have done that in. So, that's kind of what we're doing today. And of course, our focus is still network marketing, but at the end of the day, there's other things, and there's other things that'll help network marketing people, just like they'll help insurance agents that listen to the show, realtors listening to my show, car
One thing
sales.
you've started doing, John, too, also is you're building John Solloder's brand. You're not just building a brand for a company, you're building a brand for you.
Well, that's what's interesting. What's happened, folks, and I probably shouldn't admit this on a podcast, but yeah, I'm in demand. I've got consulting offers left, right, and center from owners of network marketing companies saying, "Hey, I got this problem or that problem. It sounds like with your experience, maybe you can help." I got people who want me to do books with them. I got too much on my plate for a guy that's supposed to be semi-retired. Okay. I mean, I can work 7 days a week. Matter of fact, I was telling Chris earlier, because we're recording this on a Friday afternoon. I got podcasts on Saturday and Sunday.
That's
Okay.
crazy. That's just now, John, let me ask you a question. You're a hard worker and you got your staff and you got your wife and you're working. Think about this for a second. Think about this. This is mind blowing. Since December-ish, around the 6th, You've reached out to and connected with 1,805 podcast hosts. You've gotten 60% of those introductions to be read and absorbed, and 20%, 360 of them, have replied to you in one shape or another. How many podcast interviews would you say you've done in the last 6 months? Interviews where people interviewed you and wanted to hear your story, your product.
We're up to 80 plus, maybe 90. I mean, they come in so fast, and some days they come in and somebody books me in the morning for the afternoon, and I got to go and look at who they are, so I know who I'm talking to. So yeah, it's crazy. And then what we do, by the way, here's another trick to this, Chris, and you know this certainly. Hey, they interview you. What do you do if you're doing a podcast? Which, if you listen to this, you probably are. Hey, listen, let me return the favor. Let's share our audiences, right? Because my audience is network marketing. Maybe your audience is finance. Well, guess what? Network marketing people need to know about finance. Okay. Maybe you're a realtor. Okay. I've done some realtors, for example. Well, hey, we all live in houses. We all buy property as investments if we're successful. And even if we're not successful, maybe we're in an apartment, but we eventually want to buy a house. We want to hear some of the stuff that you do. And that would be parallel in so many different industries. I do a lot of doctors, for example. Okay, doctors are really interesting. A lot of doctors are also inventors. Okay, and it's amazing how many of these doctors invent something. Really interesting people to listen to. I do a lot of personal trainers, people who know a lot about fitness and nutrition and supplementation. Once again, we're in network marketing. We've all got our brand that we take, but guess what? There's other subjects out there. For example, I ask a lot of these guys about methylene blue, red light therapy, cold water therapy, hot yoga. Why? Because there are things people are talking about, and guess what? You know about them a little bit, maybe. Your downline knows about them a little bit, maybe, but there are things you want to know more about because they might be things at the very least you're interested in. But even if you're not so interested in them, you want to know about them because somebody interested in your health product for your company is going to say, well, I also do hot yoga. I also do cold water therapy. What do you think, John? What do you think, Mary? Tell me what you think. So, you want to be timely with current events and current topic as best you can within your particular industry. So I just find it's human interest. And then, once in a while, Chris, we just get somebody that's got a great life story. I did a fellow this afternoon, for example, up in Idaho. He had been an alcoholic. He had been arrested. He had done some stupid stuff. His words, not mine. He done some stupid stuff in his life. Turned his life around
Shout out
5
to
years.
all the people I know that have done stupid stuff, including me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've done my share, believe me. But my point is this, okay? People want to hear that because I don't know where they're at. Let me tell you the best story, though, so far. Okay. And this is why I kept doing this because I was going to stop doing podcasts about 2 years ago.
Huh.
And
Now look at you. You're the host of Top Doctor Podcast and you're busy as fuck.
exactly. So I was going to do that. And I had a lady on my show from Nebraska and a lady named Lindsay. And Lindsay shared with me that her daughter had unfortunately been murdered and that she was working a job where her boss, for whatever reason, she was working for I don't know, a county or city or something. And her boss basically said, you can't take off work. I'm sorry. I know you want to go to trial. You can't go. And she was so depressed, she left that trial. She left that day of work where that trial was that day that she couldn't go to. And she's driving home. And she says, you know what? I'm considering ending my life. And she's driving down the highway. And she looks and she says, okay, there's two 18-wheelers coming on each side. I'll just cut one off and that'll be that. And then she looked in her rearview mirror. And she saw a young family in an SUV. And she said, if I kill myself, I'm going to kill them. That's not right. And she decided to do the right thing. And now she's successful in her network marketing company. She's successful raising her family. She's doing some great stuff. I had another guy. Okay, and I won't mention the foundation he runs, but he runs a major foundation for a well-known author. Told me the same thing. He had lost all his money. He was sitting in his car. He had a 357 Magnum in his glove compartment, and he was sitting there. And he says, I think I'm going to end it. My family will get, whatever insurance money the insurance company pays. And I think, and time to call it a day. And he gets a phone call from a lady who says, my husband would want you to continue his work. And that became his life work. That's about 25 years ago in that guy's case. Well, guess what? when I do a podcast, when Chris does a podcast, we don't know who's listening. We don't know where you're at. We don't know your circumstance. We don't know your state of mind. We don't know what just happened in your life today or yesterday or last week. We don't know that you didn't come from the doctor with a bad prognosis. We don't know that a family member did. We don't have no idea who we're talking to. But if we can help one human being to survive whatever circumstance that they're in that's adverse, one, then all this work is worth it.
John, one thing I've been doing for the last year is telling people about AI or die. You've got to get AI to work for you, or your business is going to slowly die. In the last 6 months, you've put AI to work for you, doing all the things that you probably don't want to do. You don't want to listen to 800,000 podcasts a day. You don't want to search through and find the ones that match your desired podcast that you want to talk on. You don't even want to send out all those emails, telling these podcasters how great they are, and then telling them to have you booked on their next show. All of that work AI does for you, and that's work that you don't want to do. But what it allows you to do is do the work that you do want to do. Sit in that comfy chair, wear your comfortable t-shirt, and literally promote your personal brand. Let people get to know you. Talk a little bit about how AI, getting AI to work for you, has allowed you to scale quicker than ever before.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, what I'm good at is talking. Okay. I'm good at very little else, as my wife can tell you. Fortunately, she's really good at all the other stuff. So thank God. Don't tell her that, she'll want to raise. But
She'll want a raise. What are you talking about? She decides whether you get a raise.
like whether I get to eat lunch or not. But in all reality, yeah, it's given me access, keyword access, to tens of thousands of people, and then their audiences that extend another tens of thousands of people that never would have heard my story, okay? Never would have heard about the mentorship lesson that I got from Ronald Reagan in 1983. Never would have heard my story about hearing for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. Never would have heard any of that. I just would have been some guy in some company somewhere that maybe you heard of in passing because you heard of my company or something. And my company's not even very big, frankly, okay, in the grand scheme of things. So maybe you never heard of me. But because of podcasting, you heard those stories and you applied them. And see, here's the key. I was having lunch with Jim Rohn a number of years ago here in Dallas. And Jim was an amazing man. And he had his glasses propped up on his head, Chris, like he always did, right? Every time you saw Jim, he had his glasses up. I don't even wore the darn things, but anyway, he always had them on his head. And we're having lunch, and we were with two other guys, Charlie Regis and Ron Reynolds. Charlie Regis was the founder of AdvoCare, a very successful guy, and Ron Reynolds had helped Jim to write The Seasons of Life, amongst other things, and worked for Jim for a number of years. And we go to lunch, and I'm about 35 at the time. And we're wrapping up lunch. Jim looks at the three of us, and he looks over, and he always called you by your last name. He says, Mr. Solloder, I can't help these two guys, but I can still help you maybe. His message was, get your butt out of your seat, run to your car, and get your day timer, what we call the day timer then. Okay, call it what you want, a diary, call it what you want, something to keep notes in. And I knew what Jim meant, and I ran to my car and I got that. You would have thought I was Usain Bolt, by the way. I was back and forth to that car in about 2 minutes. And I sat down, and Jim made a great point, Chris. He said, now, Mr. Solloder, what if this waiter over here who's taking care of us so nicely comes over and he says something so profound that you've never heard before? It's life-changing. It's business-changing. He says it, and you don't record it and write it down because you don't have the ability to do that. And you come back, you get home tonight, you go, that waiter made a great point. I'm going to go back and talk to that guy tomorrow. You come back tomorrow, he quit. They won't give you his phone number. Maybe they don't even have his phone number. Or better yet, you come back, he's there, and you say, hey, yesterday you said, and he looks at you and goes, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. It's gone forever. With a podcast, what's said is forever. Not only is it evergreen, but that content becomes yours. Okay? The people that I interview, the people that maybe if you are so inclined will interview you, or you'll interview them if you have your own podcast, okay? That information becomes yours for life. And you've got it recorded. Even better than writing it down, frankly. I think you should write it down as well, personally, but that's my opinion. But at the end of the day, you got it recorded. You can go back and say, I interviewed this guy, Chris Champion, in October 2024, and he said something really profound. Let me go back to that show and watch it. Okay. Let me hear what he said, because he said something that was a game changer that maybe didn't apply then, but it applies now.
Hey, John, talk a little bit also about how the most popular content you're creating is not the long 1 hour or half-hour interviews, but more importantly, the clips. Talk about how clips have made a big difference in your brand.
Well, we use a company that basically my wife does this work where she cuts it up, okay, the show. So a 45-minute show becomes 30-second, samples, if you will. So somebody hears that during the week prior to that show and they go, that person really sounded interesting that was on John's show. I'm going to listen to the show, be it on Friday, every day we're airing the show. So what happens with that is really interesting. Sometimes those 30-second clips is all somebody's ever going to hear. Okay. But they got an idea what that show is about. Okay. Now, sometimes they'll go back and they'll listen to that show a month, 2 months, 6 months down the road. Okay. That's up to them. But it's that sampling. It's you go into the movie theater and they show you a minute of an upcoming movie and you decide whether or not you want to see
Wow,
that.
that's a great example. That is a great example of why clips are so powerful because 98% of my content when I do a podcast that's absorbed is clips. Like I'll get a clip that'll get 8,000 views and I'll get a podcast that gets 800 views.
Exactly. Not everybody has the time to watch the whole thing, listen to the whole thing, etc. But they will watch those shorts. So that's something that you really want to do too. There's a couple of different companies that do them. Okay, we're using one that we like, but you may have a different one. Different people use different ones. Doesn't matter. We don't make any money on that. Find one that you like that you can work with. But it's easy to do, according to my wife. Okay.
Well, think about this for a second. Jose probably knocks out, and I'm going to be very conservative, 400 clips a month. I'd be willing to bet it's probably more than that number. And for her to do that physically and make all those edits to videos would take her 300-400 hours easily, an hour a clip. And AI has helped her do something like that very quickly and get it out there very quickly because the quicker you get it out there, the quicker people absorb that content.
Well, this is funny, but I actually have another podcaster wants to hire her.
Ah, that's awesome.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah, sure, you can hire her. She's got to do my work first, but yeah, she's got another podcaster actually wants to hire her, which is interesting because she does do.
Look at this. In 6 months, you've gotten booked as the host of another podcast show called Top Doctor Podcast. It's 2 o'clock. Your wife is in demand. You're both busier, and your business is scaling, and your brand is scaling. What do you see happening over the next 6, 12, and 18 months with what you're doing currently and how you're getting AI to work for you?
Well, first of all, I'm going to continue to expand my network marketing business, okay? Because we have recruited some good new people as a result of this, okay? We've got some people in the medical world that are now involved in our company and a few more that are on the fence that will hopefully be getting involved in the course of time. Secondly, I've helped friends like Leslie expand their brand. I mean, her business is growing exponentially very nicely, okay? I've got a couple of other friends in the industry that we're talking to now that want to do the same thing. So I'm going to help some of my friends to grow their businesses as well, because, even though I'm in one network marketing company, I believe in the direct selling industry as an industry. So I want to help my friends to grow, their brands that are tangible brands and good companies. So I certainly want to do that. In addition to that, though, who knows where life will lead with this type of thing. But I know just from Top Doctor alone, the people that I'm interviewing are world class. I mean, I interviewed a doctor yesterday, Chris, that has 4 inventions right now in the medical space. Okay. Amazing. Just like amazing people. Got another doctor next week that I'm interviewing that graduated from Harvard, all sorts of credentials, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm interviewing some of the best and the brightest people in the medical field. And that's something I enjoy. But once again, what doors are going to open, I don't know. Okay. But what I do know is this: go back to pivoting and agility. Okay. I was open to both, right? I was open to do it. And that's what you got to be. You got to be open. Okay. Is your business open or closed? Okay. Chris makes the statement all the time, AI or die. I don't know what AI is going to do for the next 18 months of my life, but here's what I do know. Doors that might have been shut to me otherwise are now open. Okay. People are hearing not only my story, but they're hearing other people's stories via my show. They're hearing my story via their shows, and we're all kind of growing together. The other thing is, I've developed some really nice friendships. I've met some people that are just really cool people that I really like. Like, you'd like to have these people as next door neighbors. Why? They're entrepreneurial, they're open minded, they're learning as I'm learning, okay? Because podcasting is a new media. I mean, it hasn't been around.
Well, one thing too is podcasters tend to be good centers of influence. They have really good networks.
Well, we've done a couple of other business deals already as a result of the podcast. Okay, I won't get into all the details right now, but a doctor who represents a particular product that he created. I had another guy who's an author here in Dallas call me and say, "Would you introduce me to this particular guy?" We did, and apparently there's a purchase that either is going to be made or will be made of some red light therapy machines for a facility in Mexico City. I'm not part of the transaction financially. I didn't ask to be. Maybe I should have. I don't know. But at the end of the day, two really nice guys. I introduced them. Why? They heard of each other, okay, about what I'm doing. So, at the very least, I can be a conduit for other business deals, some that I'll participate in.
You're creating a high value network. You're creating great connections.
Exactly. And that's really, one of the people I really admired was Henry Kissinger. And Henry Kissinger, at the end of his life, he spent the balance of his life after he got out of politics. He spent his life basically introducing valuable people to other valuable people. And
Yep.
a lot of great business deals happen, and people don't even know this as a result of Henry Kissinger. And I have no aspirations of being the next Henry Kissinger. I don't think Trump or some other politician is going to call me to be in the White House. But at the end of the day, if I can contribute a little bit, great. All the more better. I love the free enterprise system. I believe in it. Okay. And if I can get other entrepreneurs talking to other entrepreneurs and business happens, whether I partake or not, would I like to partake? Absolutely. Okay. But at the end of the day, if I don't, and we introduce some key people to some other key people and some good stuff happens, great. We're helping to create jobs. We're helping to grow the tax base. Okay. So that's another thing as an entrepreneur that we want to be doing constantly is, growing and helping other people to grow.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. John, as we end this call, and I like to do this on every podcast, leave people with something inspirational about doing podcast interviews. Because some people are just afraid of doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the fear for a second. Okay. If you can talk, you can do a podcast. Do you have to be eloquent? No. You have to be factual? Yeah. You want to know some facts about the person that you're interviewing, but it's simple stuff and they're going to provide it anyway. But here's what I learned from the great Larry King. Let them talk. Okay. Your job as the podcaster is to ask a series of questions to get that person to talk. So if I know, for example, like the guy I interviewed yesterday, and I just use this as a real example. I interviewed this doctor yesterday. You guys can't see all that. And there's all my notes. But I interviewed this gentleman yesterday. I knew his name. I went through the notes, okay, of who he was that were sent to me by Top Doc. I had 20 different things that I circled, okay, knowing that in 45 minutes I wasn't getting through 20 things, but I was able to just kind of jump around enough to make it all make sense for not only the fellow talking, but for me. So 20 things became about 4 real questions that this particular doctor elaborated on. And I think it was a brilliant interview, by the way. Okay. Not because I did it, but because the guy was brilliant that I interviewed. So the point is this, they're going to do the talking anyway. All you got to do is stimulate the core. Okay. And just ask them enough that you say, hey, so Chris, you live in Las Vegas, and I understand that, you're originally from Chicago. Were you a Cub fan or a White Sox fan? What's Chris going to answer? He's going to tell me, I love the Cubs and hate the Sox, or I love the Sox and hate the Cubs, right?
Can I hate the Cubs and just hate the Sox? Because both of them are just run by horrible organizations.
Right, but my point is, I got them talking, right? Just ask a question. They're going to tell you. They're the expert on their life.
For the record, I grew up a Cubs fan, but after years of being abused mentally by that organization, I came to the reality they hate their fans, so we just have no more love for that team.
Don't even ask him about the Bears because that can be an entire interview.
Yeah, no, rest in peace to Virginia McCaskey. I think the McCaskey family has shown the fans that they absolutely don't care about winning Super Bowls either.
Well, there you go. So here's my point. If that was a sports show, honestly, I could pick up on his comments about the Cubs and the White Sox and the Bears. Okay. And we could probably talk for 45 minutes easily just about what he just said there. Okay. We could talk about the 85 Super Bowl. We could talk about the fact that he knew Mike Ditka. Okay. We could talk about what a great human being Walter Payton was. We could talk about some other guy that played in Chicago that bounced the ball. I think his name was Jordan or something. Okay. Follow what I'm
He's the
saying.
GOAT, the greatest of all time.
One question leads to another, but I'm going to shut up because he's the expert on his life. And
Hey, John, what you're talking about is actually interesting because a podcast shouldn't be an infomercial. It should be an organic conversation. Talk a little bit about how it becomes easier to do these organic conversations the more podcasts you do.
well, you just kind of get a feel. I mean, if I know enough about the person, I don't need to know where they went to high school. Okay. Hey, well, let me give you another example. So the doctor yesterday, okay, Dr. Downs, okay, I knew he was a graduate of the University of Iowa. Okay, I'm a guy that loves the sport of wrestling. I'm a college wrestling's fan, big time. Okay, University of Iowa is one of the premier programs in the history of the sport, and a guy named Dan Gable led that program for a number of years. So when we got on to warm up the conversation, now the camera's not on. I said, I see you graduated University of Iowa. What year? He tells me 75. I said, okay, well, Gable came in there, what was it, 77? He goes, no, I think it was 78. So we start talking wrestling a little bit. Okay, this guy wasn't a wrestler. Okay, but we're talking about, Dan Gable's an icon in that state. Okay, I'll use this as an example. We segued off of that, okay, to a couple of other Iowa related things about the University of Iowa and the state of Iowa, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where all of a sudden, when I turned on the camera, I'm talking to a friend. Okay. Now all of a sudden he's warmed up. All right. He's telling me he's up in his vacation house up in northwestern part of the state of Iowa. And he's telling me about the lake that he's on. And it's like part of the Great Lakes system that feeds into Iowa. So we're talking about real stuff, just having a conversation. So I turned the camera on. We just continued, and we got into some of the heavy duty medical stuff, okay, because that was the purpose of the interview. But we also talked as two guys. Okay, he's written a book. I asked him about his book. I asked him why he wrote the book. I asked him a human interest question. What does his wife and kids think of the fact that dad, the inventor, dad, the doctor, dad, to this, dad, this, is now dad, the author? What do they think of that? Right? And he started to laugh. He goes, I haven't read the book yet. I go, okay, well, I get it. My kids haven't read my books either. Right? So once again, it makes it human as opposed to two people being tight. Just get on and talk like you would if you were in a bar or a restaurant and you were talking to a friend. Okay. You want the person on the other end to be comfortable. Okay. So that not feeling like this is not an inquisition. All right, we're not, they're not on the witness stand, okay, in a murder trial. Okay, you're asking them questions about their life, their business, their career, things that they're an expert on. But once again, let them talk. Okay, one of the challenges we have as podcasters is we want to hear ourselves talk. Well, then that should just be the John podcast or the Chris podcast. When we're podcasting with somebody else, they're the star of your show. It's your show, it's your branding, it's your name. But let them be the star. Let them sell your show for you. That I always have it in my mind. I'm letting this guy sell my show. He's doing my SEO for me. He's building my listenership by his story or her story. Okay, so let them talk. And once again, here's the great thing: somebody's willing to be on a podcast. And Chris, you probably found this: 99 out of 100 times, they got great communication skills. They have no problem. Yep. I mean, once in a while,
you got to don't have great communication skills. You get better skills after you do more podcast interviews. The more you do something in life, the more you become better at that act. It's repetitive skills.
Exactly. And once again, you know what? I want them to always feel welcome, not challenged. Okay. A podcast is not a news show. Now, We get down the road a few years here to the next election and we have political candidates come on. Okay, that's a little different circumstance. But if they're just a person, whatever their walk of life is, whatever their expertise is, let them talk about them, because that's what's interesting to your audience, perhaps, is they want to hear that guy's story or that girl's story, where they came from, okay? How they did what they did, how they achieved what it is that they are on your show for, because when you promote your show, you got to let people know roughly what it's about, so they're going to bother to listen to it. If you just say, here's Chris Champion, well, who the hell's that? I don't want to hear him. But I tell them Chris Champion, and I give them a couple of things about Chris, and they say, oh, I'm going to listen to that guy. AI expert. Wow, I didn't know about AI. AI or die. He's the AI or die guy. Okay. I want to hear what that fella has to say. Okay. Because I might learn something. By the way, one other thing. I interviewed 2 days ago, Chris, a guy from Boston BioLife. Okay. Which is, amongst other things, a company in Boston. It's a medical company. And the fellow that runs it, Joe Krieger, real nice guy, real easy interview, super smart guy. But Joe's a repository of medical data. Okay. So we wanted to talk about that. Now that's kind of, on the one hand, that's interesting. On the other hand, it's boring, right? Because
Yeah, I was going to say it's a combination of interesting and boring.
you want to go to sleep, read some medical stuff, you'll nod off. But anyway, so we're talking about all of that, okay? But Joe made a great point about being a repository for medical. And I got off that call with Joe, and I thought, what are we a repository for as podcasters? We are a repository of human interest and self-development in numerous walks of life. Okay. My case focused on network marketing primarily, but on now other topics as well. Other people, Chris talks a lot about AI, for example, and business development and tools that he's developing. There's other things we both talk about. But the point is we are becoming a repository. When you're a podcaster, you're becoming a repository. Not a suppository, by the way, a repository. Okay, there is a big difference. Okay, but in all seriousness, the repository, you become a library, if you will, of human information that can only be recorded by you on your show about your guests. Okay, and that's a really cool thing. So, one of the things, if you ask me what keeps me going and what keeps me stimulated to keep doing all of these shows with all these different great people, is I want to build a library that when I'm gone, my grandkids could go to it and go, hey, in 2029, Grandpa interviewed Chris Champion, who built the largest AI generated company in a direct selling field and revolutionized business history with what he did. And my grandfather knew that guy and talked to him. They'll be teaching about what Chris is doing, down the road at probably the leading technological schools in the world. Cal Poly will probably be teaching this stuff down the road, what he's done. Okay. I interviewed him. I knew the guy. Well, guess what? I know a lot of guys and a lot of things and are doing a lot of these different things, right? And so do you, more importantly. It's not about me, it's about you. And you can do this. So contact us, find out, okay? And Chris, I think you even have a finance program if they need to finance stuff, don't you?
Yeah, I think literally, I tell people this. If you're going to add an employee this year in 2025, you've got to make that employee be AI related. And if you can get, for the cost of one employee, 40,000 man hours of work done every day, you can scale your business through the use of AI like nothing before. Like I said, it's AI or die. Your business will fall behind those who do use AI.
Chris, just to kind of wrap up here, but you're making a great point on that. Look, AI is a scary thing if you know nothing about it. Once you start using it, you're going to realize it's a business tool. It's a friend. It's like, I remember when I first got a fax machine in about 1985, and I got my first fax, and I said, how did I ever live without this thing, right? I remember
John, when you look at your outbound emails, you and Jose sometimes look at the emails that are being sent all throughout the day. Do you just say to yourself, wow, this is mind-blowing?
I couldn't hire all of these people. I wouldn't even know where to find them, first of all. Second of all, the communication skills are better than any human being can write. I mean, realistically, unless you're, I don't know, maybe Shakespeare or something, but I don't think he's coming back to write my emails for me. So
I
at
don't think so either.
the end of the day, I mean, this is a tool who, once again, in time, you go back and you watch this video in 2030. that we did today. And you're going to go, oh, everybody's using that tool. Everybody's doing something like that. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen, guys. You could be ahead of the curve or you could be behind the curve. If you're ahead of the curve and you're using it now, not only are you going to build your downline, but you're going to build, more importantly, your brand. I've been really focused on my brand these last 6 months. Why? I love my company. I've been here 29 years. Okay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to die with that company, hopefully. Okay. Hopefully not too soon. Okay. But at the end of the day, my brand is bigger for me than my network marketing business. Now, somebody might challenge that. I might get a nasty letter from compliance. What are you talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. My 42 years in the industry, I've done a lot of stuff, influenced a lot of people. Well, shouldn't people hear those stories, or should I just keep them to my little company? Or should I let everybody else know, hey, here's what I did. Here's the stuff that I learned. And by the way, I learned a lot of stuff by trial and error, but I also learned a lot of stuff from some of the mentors in the industry that went back to the 60s. Okay. Bobby Depew, Larry Thompson, Mark Hughes. I mean, the people that really were part of this industry back in the 60s, some of them are dead now. Larry's still alive, but some of the rest are gone. And there's others, certainly. So if I learned all of that, isn't it my responsibility to pass on some of what I learned, not only from those guys, but what I added to it, what I figured out by trial and error, what I figured out by getting my brains beat in sometimes on doing stuff that didn't work? Okay. Shouldn't I share those stories? I absolutely should. And don't I want my colleagues in the industry who've had similar paths, similar frustrations, similar successes to share their story? Yeah, because here's what you'll never get on a John Solloder podcast. Everything is great. Everything is rosy. The world is wonderful. Let's sing kumbaya. Bull crap. That's not the way the world works. The reality is you get up early in the morning, you go to the gym, you have your breakfast, and you start to grind. And that's in multi-level, that's in insurance, that's in real estate, that's in automobile sales, that's in any business that there's a commission check attached to. You grind. Okay. So you don't want to hear somebody get on there and blow a bunch of smoke up your skirt. You want to hear somebody say, yeah, here's a problem I had. I went into Detroit thinking I was going to do all this business, and I had 4 feet of snow. My meeting got snowed out. And I had $10,000 in advertising on the newspaper and on the internet. And I thought I was going to lose my mind and quit the business. Well, that was my friend, okay, a friend of mine, Dan Cato's story. Okay, he drove from Toronto, had all kinds of stuff going on in Detroit. Got there, nobody showed up. It snowed. Well, you know what? You hear that. Dan's super successful. Dan's one of the most successful people in network marketing. But you hear Dan's story. Dan could have hung it up right then and there, gone through some life challenges prior to that, et cetera, et cetera. But you hear that story and you go, well, golly gee, I went down to the local 7-Eleven. I was supposed to, or Starbucks. 7-Eleven is probably not a place you're going to meet somebody on business, but, Starbucks. And my prospect didn't show up. You're going to cry about it, or you're going to think, well, yeah, Dan went through that, and hey, Dan's making, 7 figures and, killing it, right? Well, hey, come on. You know what I mean? Like, that's life, right? People don't show up. They get flat tires. So, that's all we want to do, folks. Just be real. Share your story and have your people that you interview share their stories. And most importantly, use Champion AI to get yourself in front of all of these audiences and share your magnificence with other people, because you can bless them, you can help them. Can you profit from them? Yeah, to some degree, absolutely. But go with the right motivation and the money will follow.
You got it. He's John Solloder. He's the man that wears a skirt. Let's chop it up again soon, buddy.
Thanks, Chris.